Tucker was quiet for a few days, and you knew he was going to surface. You knew he was going to do something, as Tucker would. And he puts up a tweet and a video message. And I think it's very, very important what he did say and what he didn't say. Let's take a listen. Del, you got that?
Yep.
I'm going to play this stop and go through the 2 minutes because it may be the most important thing he said thus far. Let's go.
Good evening, it's Tucker Carlson. One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also, a lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits.
Before I start getting up and clapping, which I will. Always been a fan of his. Brilliant delivery. Absolutely brilliant, incredibly likable. He does media the way all people should do media. People should take notes and learn from that guy. He's fantastic at what he does. First of all, what he does there in the opening is a thank you, right? That's his thank you to the audience that he didn't get to do on air. And I saw some people that were taking issue with, well, you know, the audience loves Tucker so much, and why didn't he come on and say goodbye? That's not my guess. And by the way, everything that I say here, I do not have any inside information from Fox News. I have not been in contact with anyone from inside Fox News. This is pure opinion, my pure opinion based on what I see. I've not had any interaction with Tucker. So take it for what it is. But when you don't get to say goodbye to an audience in corporate media, it's not an amicable exit. It's not, because when it is an amicable exit, you get on, you say, I'm going to go off to pursue other things. This guy, something happened where this guy got a phone call and that was it, and he was cut. So you can't blame the hosts when that happens. They are completely powerless in a situation like that. There is nothing that he can do. Regardless, here he is saying thank you. What he's really saying is, I saw your messages. Some of them crack me up. I see a whole bunch of people really care about the truth. That's positive. That's optimistic for the future, because those of us who are battling the system want to know that there are people out there who appreciate that somebody like this guy put his whole career on the line to say, I am not going to not cover that story, even if it ends me, right? And I don't know for sure if that's what happened, but I'm willing to bet that some of that went down. So that's number one. I think it's also very important that he immediately goes to the heart of the matter here, which is that you can't have a real debate in corporate media. He's telling you that the structure that I was in was preventing actual debate on real issues. He's talking without saying directly about these untouchable topics. Now, I don't know what he's referencing. He does say corporate power. What does that mean? That doesn't just mean what you think it means, like, oh, Kellogg or whatever company it is has power. No, he's talking about, you know, the corporate powers that be in corporate media. That's what he's saying. Big debates are not allowed to happen. He's targeting a space that he took part in. He's going to probably, in future months, whenever he's allowed to talk, we'll talk about that in a second, but he's going to probably take on the structure, which I've talked about for a long time. You go watch my intro video here when I joined here and started this show, where I talk about these little sound bites and these little, you get on, it's like a 4-minute segment. It's not meant to be an actual debate. It's meant to make people angry, outraged. This is the good team. This is the bad team. And it's controlled opposition. It's supposed to make you think, yeah, we're on your side, when in reality, you have producers behind the scenes that are telling you, just don't touch the untouchable topics. This is safe. You can talk about this. Don't touch that, or else. Tucker's not an or else kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that just says, yeah, or else what? You know, that's just his personality. It always has been, thankfully. So he's taken a dig without taking a dig. Let's keep playing.
It's them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one-party state. That's a depressing realization.
Okay, so that's very
important. Not permanent.
That's very important. He's talking about the uniparty, which people will know. He's talking about what I talk about all the time. This is not a simple time anymore. This is not Democrat versus Republican, and if the Republicans win, yay! No. This is what Andrew Breitbart used to talk about on steroids. This is what the Tea Party was talking about on steroids. This is the uniparty. This is Democrat establishment, Republican establishment, big pharma, corporate media, all bowing to the same God. Okay? And who is that God? Well, it's the powers that be. You know, it's your big pharma powers that be. It's your WEF powers that be. It's your WHO powers that be. They're all in it together. So he's trying to tell you, just because you think you're watching a conservative outlet, and I came out with this warning sign when I talked about the mandates, and I said, how could you be on air bashing mandates when your own company had a mandate? How could you be out there being the vaccine mandate was so terrible? Now come watch me on my network that had a vaccine mandate and fired a whole bunch of people because they didn't comply. Yeah, honey, I'll wait. You know, I think I'll maybe watch water boil instead. That's what he's talking about. So he's taking the high road in the sense that he's not naming specific name, but he's letting you know, basically you and I, meaning him and you, know what's going on. He's here to play. Let's keep going.
Orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them. This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid. They've given up persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
I love it. Wow. It's very Tucker. By the way, his lighting is fantastic. Who did that lighting? Let's get them over here. Those sky blue eyes just glowing. I love it, right? Is it not warm and inviting? I'm just saying. So he talks about the fear that exists in corporate media structures and establishment structures. They're terrified. They're terrified of people like him. They're terrified of people like me. There are many others. They're terrified of a lot of people who exist in these new media spaces who don't have restrictions on them, who don't have handcuffs on, right? So he's addressing them directly. He's letting them know, I'm not afraid of you. Everyone out here is not afraid of you. That's why this tweet's getting a zillion views. We're going to talk about that in a second. He uses the word silence. He uses some very, very powerful words that you have to think about why he strategically chose those. The truth will prevail. True things prevail, he said. That's absolutely true. Just know that you are deemed, he's right. When you are somebody who's battling the system, you are deemed as powerful. You're also deemed as a deep threat. And they're so used to being in power, these corporate media structures, that they're used to being able to deplatform someone, and that's the end of them, right? Think about 20, 30 years ago, you deplatform someone like a Tucker Carlson and you take his power away, right? This is before the age of real social media. This is before the age of the YouTubes and the Rumbles and all of these different, the Blaze. And, you know, I could sit here and name a bunch of places you can go to do, you know, individual content that's not under the big corporate umbrella of, you know, the woke. But today, that's just not the same. So these corporate, they don't know what to do. They need to silence him. And I'm sure there were many, many calls that happened that called for his silencing. I'm sure there were many internal emails. I'm sure there were many clashes at editorial meetings. Just my opinion again. That is my conjecture. That is my opinion about what could have gone on. But they can't silence him. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place because they got to get him off the air because, right, he can't continue to actually dig for truth and create actual debate and make people think out there because ultimately, remember, it's all part of the same machine. Don't be fooled. You need to stop being fooled by, this is a conservative corporate media outlet. It's different. It's not. It's not. It's the same top down, you know, can do this, can't do that. Caving to the same structures. Look at all of them. They all had mandates. And you know something? Valuetainment didn't have a mandate. When I went out to the Blaze, I remember talking to Glenn Beck. He won't mind me saying this, but I remember talking to him and saying, you know, are you guys going to put a mandate? What happens if it sweeps the country? And he was like, we would shut down before we did that. We are not going to force somebody to do that. He was very firm. I believed him. And just based on how they were running that company when I showed up, they were not having it. They were not having it. They were not going to cave to the woke. So people say, oh, you don't have a choice. You were in New York City. Give me a break. You always have a choice. These companies have a lot of money. They can set up studios wherever they want and protect their people from having to be injected by anything or kowtow into Big Pharma. They kowtow to Big Pharma because they needed to and they wanted to because they get money from them. That's all their ad dollars. That's why. So then I think this is really important that we look at. So that hits, and let's take a look at that tweet from Mediaite. I just want to show you your, not to say we're all going to have the power of a Tucker Carlson, right? But just think about this. Let's look at that Mediaite article. That's right in there. Tucker's Twitter views versus Fox News views in the 8 p.m. hour. Yeah. The views on a Twitter video published by former Fox News host Tucker Carlson on Wednesday surpassed the Tuesday evening viewers of his old cable news slot in less than an hour. Carlson's video, which made veiled jabs at Fox News and the cable news industry as a whole, received more than 1.8 million views in less than an hour after its release. I love it. While more than 5 million people saw the post on their timeline, according to Twitter statistics. As of writing, the total views of it's past this even now, what they're saying. Fox News' 8 p.m. replacement slot for Tucker Carlson tonight, which was hosted by Brian Kilmeade on Tuesday, meanwhile, received the complete antithesis of a Tucker Carlson, by the way. No disrespect to Brian, but a complete opposite in terms of where he stands on a number of issues, particularly issues that relate to the military-industrial complex, by the way. But regardless, very different. Received just over 1.7 million views, significantly less than both the Twitter video and Fox News' 8 p.m. ratings when Carlson occupied the slot, where he'd regularly draw more than 3 million. So this guy's tweet broke the internet.
You see how much it has now?
How much is it now, right?
So 75 million people saw the tweet, but 22 million watched it. Okay. The entire video. That's crazy.
So you have corporate media, which everyone thinks has power, right? Because they tell you they do, and they have a lot of money, and they have a lot of friends in high places. And then you have what real power is and real influence is, which is your ability to reach people. Your ability to reach people is all that matters. This guy doesn't need a fancy network. Tucker Carlson doesn't need a fancy network. He doesn't need a fancy studio. He doesn't even need that fancy lighting he has, although I do appreciate it. He doesn't need any of that. He just needs himself being able to reach you. And guess what? We all know it. He knows it. And the corporate media outlet that just fired him knows it too. So ha-ha. Ha-ha, I say to all those who aim to censor. It ain't going to work. So then I saw something that came up. Did you see that one that I added? Deli, can you just bring that up? Because I think it's interesting. The one that I added this morning. Suleiman. Remember Suleiman? We had him on to talk about the Tate case. Y'all remember him? If you don't, you can go back and watch that. But he pulled a tweet up. Do you have it, Deli?
Yep.
Okay. Can you blow that up a little bit? He was commenting on a segment from Megyn Kelly. She covered this whole thing. And he says, breaking, Tucker Carlson was not fired. He is still an employee of Fox, and they still have to negotiate an exit. He is currently not free to launch a podcast or negotiate with other shows. Tucker Carlson was caught off guard. He was not allowed to do his show and was removed from the company email. Fox refused to tell Tucker the reason why he has been removed from the channel. Now, again, I can't confirm or deny with sources. I don't know what Megyn's sources are on this. Here's what I can tell you. The language gets tricky. He was fired. Okay, it's semantics at this point, right? You're talking about, is he still an employee? Here's my guess, pure conjecture as to what happened. Again, no inside sources. Here's my pure opinion, having lived in that world for a very long time and having seen the beginning and the end of many contracts myself. My guess is that this was very sudden, which it was, right? He didn't get to say goodbye to the audience, so my guess is it was not amicable in any sense of the word. He probably got a call, was told he couldn't go on air, and it was over. He was not going to be able to appear on air. And now it becomes a matter of, even though he is fired in the sense that he is no longer going to be able to get on their network and their broadcast and do his usual show, they have to negotiate an out of that contract because he probably has a ton of money left on it, and there's going to be a ton of terms. Now, many people were saying, are they going to keep him from working? That would be a huge mistake. Sometimes when these contracts end, let me explain this to you. Sometimes they will pay you out, And they will put a clause in that says you will get your money, but you cannot go work for somebody else under any condition for the duration of the contract. Then you have to get a lawyer to come in and fight for your ability to do so. Sometimes they will recognize that that's a terrible strategy. And what they will do is they will pay you out until you decide to then go make money via another venture, and they will release you, and then they stop paying you, and then you can go on and do your thing.
Wow.
I think it would be an enormous mistake by Fox to silence him and to hold him hostage. That is not going to play well for Fox News. Their numbers are already tanking as a result of this decision because people see it for what it is. It's so obvious. If you looked at Tucker's shows over the last year, this guy was constantly pushing the envelope according to, their standards. Look at what his show was saying and the topics that it was touching and what everybody else wouldn't even touch. Forget it. Oh my gosh, So it's pretty obvious what went on here. There's an editorial clash. He was covering stuff a certain way. And now I don't know if there were internal communications that went afoul. A lot of this is going to depend on whether there was just cause for the firing and whether they can cite a just cause to prevent him from working, to prevent the payout. This is all legal stuff. I have no idea. I don't know what he said in internal communications. I don't know what grounds could or couldn't have been broken. I don't know. I can't answer those questions for you. What I can say is that this guy was rubbing salt in the wound of the GOP establishment, rubbing salt in the wound of corporate media for a very long time. This was probably many, many, many clashes deep on many, many, many issues. And it's just they can't have it, right? The powers that be will not have him in that position. And they have to please pharma. They have to please advertisers. They have to please, powers that be. I don't know who they're connected to specifically. I can't tell you if they hop on the phone with this one or that one, but politicians do get involved. I can tell you that, and make calls to people at the top, and it's not worth it to them. Because you know why? Again, they think you're going to keep your TV on. They think you're going to let it drone on in the background, and they're like, well, they have nowhere else to go. There's a whole world out here. So you want to make your message heard, turn the TV off. You're not getting news anyway. You're not getting news from corporate media. I'm not just talking about, Fox or CNN, all of it. It's not news. It's propaganda filtered through, matrix cronies. That's the truth. If you like the short clip and want to watch the full episode, click here. And if you want to connect with me one-on-one on Connect, you're going to click right here. Let's get to talking.